Welcome to the Resource Podcast, where we take a slightly sassy, fully feminist approach to creating healthy relationships and a joyful life. I'm your host, Tatiana Thompson, and I'm a licensed professional counselor practicing in both Arizona and Minnesota. I specialize in applying clinically proven techniques like EMDR, parts work, and neural reprogramming to help you see real, lasting change in your everyday life. Just remember, I am a licensed therapist, but I'm not your therapist. This show is for informational purposes only, and it's not a replacement for seeking personal mental health or medical advice. So join me now as we explore simple strategies for breaking toxic relationship patterns and applying simple mental health tools to your daily life. Learn how to take the small steps today that will guide you to your best life tomorrow. Hello and welcome to the Resource Podcast, the show that invites you to question everything you thought you knew about relationships and mental health so you can finally break through your stuck points and create the life you've always wanted. I'm your host, Tatiana, and I'm on a mission to help 1,000 women become emotionally and financially independent so they can choose a relationship instead of needing one. And I want to just give you a heads up. My dogs are right across the other side of my desk and they are playing. So if you hear clinking noises or strange panting, that's them, okay? Not me. I'd like to use today's episode as an opportunity to explore the joy and immense grief of launching our children into the world. And I am warning you, there will probably be tears from me, maybe from you too in this episode, but you'll have to listen to mine, unfortunately. Because I just dropped my oldest daughter off at college for the second year in a row. And I have to say, it didn't actually get any easier, at least from the emotional perspective. Yeah, we knew what to do, but it was still really emotionally charged. And I bet a lot of you listening can relate to this, whether you're in the thick of it with me right now or you're dealing with anticipatory grief, which is something I'm also sitting with a lot because now I know, what it feels like. And then my youngest daughter will also be launching in 3 short years. And I say short because it is. It goes by so quickly. I can really relate, though. I hope other mothers can relate to this, that it doesn't feel quick in the very beginning when it's so overwhelming, especially if you're under any additional stressors, because parenting in and of itself is very stressful. But I know as me, I was a divorced mother and one of my children had a lot of health issues and we were going through a lot. So those first many years, I would say almost 10 years, was very hard for me and a time that I kind of wanted to just survive. And then it transferred into, okay, now parenting can be really joyful. Not that there wasn't any joy before then, but it was harder to find because, again, I was just trying to survive the experience. So I know these last 3 years will go way quicker than I want them to. See, the tears are already coming. But before I begin, I do want to acknowledge there is a vast difference between this type of grief and what a person would feel actually losing a child to death or maybe something extreme like addiction or serious mental illness. This is a different episode. I am not trying to relate those. The grief of sending my child to college and off in the world does not even begin to compare with these experiences. So I want to name that and clarify that today's episode is meant to explore the very paradoxical experience of having grief and hope for your child through this life transition that will end. And just to address it from a very different perspective than losing a child. So for today's episode, I actually spent a little time in my head wondering if this was a worthwhile topic for you, my listeners. But I opted to go for it because I think it's such a relatable stage for the women I work with, for my friends. And if we can find community and validation in it, then we're probably going to get through it a lot better. I want to use the space to express some of the things that are coming up for me and maybe offer some perspective on parenting that I've learned through trial and error, and especially from some really wise friends and mentors along the way. And maybe some of it will help you, if nothing else, just to relate to the experience. But more than anything else, I really want to normalize the grief process. So if you can relate to the fear or the grief of what it will be like to watch your children exit your home to enter the world without you, you're in the right place. Let's digest it together today. For me, it all really starts, that I've been feeling lately, is just this raw ache each time I realize she doesn't live here anymore. Gotta pause again. You know how in a movie they'll capture that feeling? They'll do like a montage of the scenes from the home that are all warm and bright and light and everybody's happy and it's chaotic, but it's like great. And then all of a sudden they'll cut to the dark, empty room with the mom or the dad just standing there alone looking at the room. That's how it's felt for me, because specifically, even in my daughter's room, it was so nice to have her own home for the summer. And I hope that she continues to come home each summer, but I can't control that. It was so nice. Her room was lit up again. It had all of her decorations. It had even just the smells, that might sound weird, but mostly perfume and candles, right? But it was so nice to have her, the essence of her in the house. And then suddenly she packed everything up, and there's a bed frame and there's a desk and there's a dresser, but all of the light that she brings to a place was gone suddenly. And it's such a strange time because, like I referenced earlier, many of us have had times where we just wish our kids could grow up and maybe not need us quite so much. It's just so overwhelming when they're really young. But the moment they do stop needing us, we're kind of like, whoa, 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 wait a second. And I always like to joke that I don't just love my kids, I genuinely like them. And I think that's really different than loving them. You can love somebody and want the best for them and always do what's right for them, but to want to spend time with them is different, to really enjoy their presence and have fun with them. I know not all parents can say that about their kids or maybe all of their kids. Again, that might sound kind of cold, but I think it's true. So I feel very, very lucky that I have that with both of my children. And that's one of those moments that I spend with gratitude every day, that I enjoy my children. I love being around them. And to be fair, that enjoyment has definitely increased as they've become more mature. But I'd like to name a few things that are really normal about this process of letting them go, and maybe offer some tools to navigate them in a way that makes you feel seen and helps keep you a little bit more sane in the process. So let's start with this. It's really normal to notice more conflict with the child that's leaving as the launch date approaches. And it's funny, I actually remember this when I was launching as a child. I remember looking back on it and wondering why my mom and I were so irritable with each other as that time was approaching. And I don't know the research on this, but I speculate that it's probably a combination of like almost a reactive sadness. Like, I'm too afraid to look at how sad and scared I am for both parties. So I'm going to use anger and irritability to protect myself. I think many of us do that, and I talk about that in all of my emotional processing episodes. We use anger to protect against something that feels too vulnerable to experience. But I also imagine it has something to do with the child really flexing their independence muscles right before they leave, almost in an effort to prove to themselves that they'll be okay. And then you add to the fact that the parent or even the child might get a little more clingy as the date approaches, which can cause the other person to feel like they need a little bit more space, but everything's a little out of whack. So this, like any transition in our lives, is an important time to proactively tend to our emotions and nervous systems. So what does that look like? Every day, I want you to spend some time checking on your emotions and letting them flow through you and out of you. And if you're not sure how to do this, please check out my episodes on how to feel your emotions. They should be labeled as such. If you do parts work, this is a great time to check in on your parts daily. Maybe even when you're doing that emotional check-in, you can be like, hey, who needs some support today? You might find that you have some parts that are feeling triggered around abandonment. They may need additional time and care from you and reminders that you won't abandon them. You might also have parts that feel only lovable if you're needed. So this is a great time to say, I love you. You don't have to serve anybody to be loved. You don't have to serve me. You don't have to prove yourself to be loved. So great time to do consistent parts work. Please note, everything I'm talking about here is proactive, not reactive. Make a habit of this mindfulness in your life in general, please. I promise you your life will change. But also right now, if you can't do it in your normal life, this is the time to prioritize it. 5 minutes a day. Do it on your drive to work. Do it on your drive from dropping your kids off at school. Do it as you're falling asleep at night. And doze off in this happy place where you're taking care of yourself. Great. I don't care if you fall asleep doing it. third step about this transition to proactively tend to your emotions is to listen to your nervous system and work on nervous system regulation. Believe it or not, that is at the crux of every dysregulation we feel, every big reactive emotion we feel. It means that our nervous system got dysregulated. So listen to audios that are like nervous system regulating. If you just type that into Google, you will find a lot of things. Nervous system regulation audio soundtracks. But you can also look up things like BLS or bilateral stimulation audios. You can look it up on Spotify, YouTube, Google. You can search them in any of those places and you'll find some great stuff. Oh, there's this wonderful song called Adrift. I forgot who wrote it. I apologize. Wonderful. I'll try to link it in the show notes. Adrift is the name. It's like an hour long, but you just put it in both ears and it kind of waves back and forth and just really soothes your nervous system. But I'm also a really big fan of this program called To Be Magnetic. You can listen to their podcast called Expanded. And if you're part of the program with their membership, you can get access to all their nervous system regulating tools, which are absolutely fantastic. They, again, do bilateral stimulation as well, but they'll walk you through reparenting inner children, inner child work, IFS, love it, do some of that. And it's very much EMDR informed. So that's another great way to regulate your nervous system. And frankly, just to boost everything you're doing in your life. I am an avid follower of this program. It has absolutely changed my life long term, and I want to refer everybody to check it out. I will link that in the show notes as well. So don't skip this step of proactively tending to your emotions, your nervous system, and your parts, okay? Because you're going through a lot. And I want to remind you, if you don't notice that you're going through a lot, there's probably a reason. There's probably a part that's blocking you from feeling these big, vulnerable emotions. And so it's time to go, I know you're in there, and I'm going to go look for you, and I'm going to hold space for you. So all of those steps are to tend to your emotions and nervous system. But what about your child's at that time? They're going through a lot. By the way, any children who are being left behind are also going through a lot, and they need some support from you. Even if it's just to say, it's really scary to watch your big sister go away. I think I'm really sad, and I bet you are too. Do you want to talk about it? I'm here. I'm sorry that you're going through this too. Maybe spend extra time with that child. Maybe do, like I do, date nights with my kids. Maybe make sure that they get more date nights. Honestly, once my older child left, my younger child got to inherit the older child's date nights. So that's another way of softening the blow. But for the child who's leaving, be extra validating and patient. So I'm not saying let your child treat you like crap, because they might be more inclined to do that then. But this is a good time to watch for the fear and pain underneath their snappy tone and respond with things like, it sounds like you might be hurting or scared right now. I'm here for you if you need me. And if there really was inappropriate treatment, you can add things like, but please work on how you're speaking to me. I'm on your team and I know you're going through a lot and I'm here for you. All right, so that is really important. This is a time to tend to everybody's emotions. You are the adult in the room, and for yourself and for your children. And it's a great time to remind yourself of that you can be that really loving, compassionate, infinitely supportive adult. But that also means you got to take care of yourself, okay? Get your sleep, get your movement, get your nutrition, all of those things met. Here at Resource Counseling, we believe everyone can have an extraordinary life, and that everyone's extraordinary looks different. If you're ready to take your relationships and your life to the next level, be sure to subscribe to my email list in the show notes. Get free tools, practical weekly tips that you can apply immediately to your life, and become part of our inner circle so you can start living your own extraordinary life today. So moving on to step 2. Another thing to remember is that grief is like a pendulum. So I know we go through the stages and whatnot, but more than anything, the process of feeling your grief is like a pendulum. When you go through a loss that you can't change, we end up pendulating between feeling the intense pain of it and then and the emptiness and all of the yuckiness, right? But then we swing back to living our normal lives with very little awareness of what's happening. We might have a little ping in the back of our minds or in our bodies, but it doesn't envelop us as much. Our systems can't tolerate being in the pain nonstop, so we have to swing back and forth. But Remember, you have to swing into the pain at times or else it's going to get stuck and it will find a way out. So know that it is normal and healthy to let yourself lean into the pain when it comes and then to let yourself take a break when it feels right. You don't want to just stay stuck over here. And like I said earlier, the only caveat here is that if you don't ever find yourself swinging into the pain, there's probably a part of you that's blocking the sadness, and you'll want to find ways to open yourself to the feeling. Work with the part that's afraid of feeling it. Might mean getting a therapist for the time being. Having children leave the nest, it's a legit life change. Honestly, seeing a therapist about it is reasonable. Because remember, our emotions will always find a way to express themselves, and it's much better for us to be in the lead of that process. All right. So step number 3, or consideration number 3, is it's normal that we as moms oftentimes feel so connected to our children and our identities as mothers that it almost feels like we're losing a limb. Because, I mean, my God, we've spent 18 plus years doing everything possible to make sure they were safe and building them up so that they could go into the world and thrive. That's a lot of orienting ourselves towards them and their safety and their happiness and their well-being. So we risk making them our full identity and our primary purpose in life. It is a purpose. It is not our primary purpose throughout the whole lifespan, which means when they leave, we may feel like we've lost more than a loved one at our home. It feels like we've lost part of ourselves and part of our orientation in the world, our purpose in the world. So I want to talk about some ways that we can prevent this and or cope with this if it happens to us. First off, this is kind of a hard reminder, and it might even sound kind of weird that I say this, but we don't own our children. I know they came out of our bodies in most cases and not in all cases, but we don't own them. They are not actually an extension of us. They are their own people. And we sometimes need to remind ourselves of that. They are not here to make us proud. They are not here to prove that we did a good job. They are not here to follow in our footsteps. They're not here to complete something we never got to do at their age. They're not here to do anything to meet our needs. They need to be fair and reasonable to us, and we can set those standards, but they are not here to give us anything. It is our job to guide them, not make them happy. It is our job to guide them every step of the way so that they learn how to make themselves happy, so that they can meet their own needs growing up. It's to teach them how to do that for themselves, which takes, by the way, a lot of pressure off of us, but it also allows them to be well adjusted into the world, because it means that it isn't our job to make sure they're happy. I mean, I know that sounds like so duh, but I think so many of us feel like that is our ultimate responsibility, and it can't be. You cannot make another person happy. You can teach them and give them the framework to learn how to make themselves happy. And that also is not a guarantee that they will. That's a whole other level of grief. But knowing all of this, it also means that we don't make our identity about them so much. I mean, yeah, being a mom is special and it is a very important identity. It is totally worth celebrating and acknowledging and being proud of and all of the wonderful things, because it is the hardest job I've ever done. I'm sure you can probably relate. But that's different than saying, I'm so-and-so's mom and she's pre-med, and if she doesn't want to spend all of her free time with me, I'm going to feel abandoned and maybe even betrayed. Like somehow she owes me something. So again, they don't owe us anything. They are not our identity. We have to give them that space to go explore the world without guilt, without shame, without any of those things. And this is why I recommend, and I actually did a Martyr to Matriarch program for a while, that all moms build a lot of their identities and lives and hobbies outside of being a parent. An empty nest is excruciating if all we were doing was living for our kids versus just grieving the transition of not having them in our home all the time and having the relationships change. So don't forget that approach of letting your children not be an extension of you, of having your own hobbies. It's also much healthier for your children. I'm not just saying do this for you. It's good for your children because they don't need the pressure of becoming who you want them to be, or making us feel loved and giving us their free time unless they want to. When we make our kids our world, they become parentified and feel guilty for doing what's natural and needed of them, which is to go and build their own lives. To which I must admit, I've had my own struggles with this, right? My oldest is definitely that stereotypical oldest child who had to grow up with her mother, where I was maturing and becoming a fully grown adult and a good parent in the process. And we've talked about it a lot, but it's still something her nervous system hasn't quite healed from. So I have to be careful not to put pressure on her. And I don't know about you, but I'm always trying to find a balance between like showing her my grief that she's leaving and trying not to make her feel guilty about it. So like, I just want her to know that she's so loved and I want to be authentic about my feelings, but I also like don't want her to feel like I'm holding her back or that she should feel guilty in any way. So I will cry in front of her, not sobbing, but I will definitely let the tears happen when they need to happen and just tell her how much I adore her and that I don't want for her to leave, but I also follow up that with reminding her that she needs to leave. It's her job to go, and I'm not placing any guilt on her. It's just that I really like her a lot and I'm going to miss her. And that gives her space to, feel the same way if she does. And she oftentimes does. I am realizing as I talk about this and process all of this, this is such a process of handling our need for control, especially I'm talking very frankly about my own, but I think many of us feel this as parents. We feel such a need for control with our kids, not for the sake of controlling them, but to keep them safe, to feel like we have some certainty about the future, to stay connected to them, and to, again, soothe ourselves that we didn't completely fuck it up. Like, there's a tremendous amount of guilt that goes into being a parent. And so we try to do everything right and then we mess up. And that guilt is very, very hard to live with. So I'm also noticing urges for control. It's kind of a habit I'm trying to break in my life right now, a new layer of it, right? Our kids need us to guide them, but not to define them. We need to be their safety net, but we also need to gradually pull that back in age appropriate ways so that they can fall a little in the safety of our home and make mistakes in a safe way. But that means we cannot hand them everything, do everything for them, fix everything for them when they face difficulties, or else they never learn how to do this on their own. And then they cannot feel safe and happy and thriving in the world. So remember that urge for control oftentimes will show up as that rescue urge, like I'm going to do for my kids, I'm going to fix everything for them. And we got to let them fall in safe ways, okay? But also in all of that, we have to see who they really are and support their desire to explore that. We don't get to decide what they like, what they think is cool, where they want to go in life, any of that. And I mean, that's really the whole point of really, truly loving someone is seeing who they really are and still showing them consistent love and respect. I think that's a big one. I think sometimes we can say, yeah, I love my kid, but I don't respect what they're doing. I think we want to play around with that and be a little bit more open to that. I know it can be hard, but maybe our job isn't to judge what they're doing and it's to get more curious. Let me pause. I hope you understand I'm not talking about if your kid is doing something harmful to themselves or someone else. That needs to be addressed, but it also needs to be addressed from a place of curiosity instead of judgment as well. Remember, all behaviors have a purpose. They are serving a purpose. So even if our child is struggling with drug use or problematic friends, there is a reason that they're doing it, and we need to understand the underlying reason so we can replace it with something that might be more adaptable and helpful to them. Wrapping all this up, I wonder if you can relate to what I'm feeling. And if you can, I would love to hear about it. Share it in the comments or send me a message. I'll link my email below. For any of you who are going through this transition or just prepping for the transition, because we all know it's coming, right? We all hope it's coming. That's another thing to consider is what if our children don't launch? And maybe that's another episode that I can work on in the future. But if your children are launching or you're prepping for that, it's a big transition. Your home is going to be a lot more quiet and it's going to feel hollow. It's going to feel different. Even if you have the other children there, they just cannot fill both spaces or all the spaces. Remember to give yourself lots of comfort and love and validation and opportunities to cry. This too shall pass, but the journey will be much smoother if you tend to the feelings and needs that you're having, because you also deserve to be taken care of, which is just another way that you can stop chasing and start choosing. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Resourced Podcast. My hope is that you learned at least one practical tool you can apply to your life today to move in the direction of your dreams. If you found this content helpful, be sure to hit the subscribe button, leave a review, and consider subscribing to my email list, which is linked in the show notes. And remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. What step will you take today?